All right. So speaking on accountability in our DAO, so this is not going to be the most comprehensive view of accountability in the DAO, especially with regards to DCG Dash Core Group. But it's intended to provide some ideas for people to ruminate over. So you can imagine a lot of the ideas presented here are not endorsed or supported by DCG, but at least there have been really good, fruitful, good conversations back and forth on the pros and cons of each, which I'll go over. If you don't know who I am, I'm Hilawe. Served as a DTP in the past 3 years ago. Current Dash Discord mod and aspiring memester, as you'll see. And also I've kept the Dash After Party Jitsi calls alive since 2018. Joel is the one that started it, continues to keep it going, but I've also been kind of the facilitator, steward for it. And yeah, we've had some pretty interesting guests on there, some blasts from the past, Draco, August, George Donnelly. So it's been interesting times in there. So let's go next one. So just overview. It's gonna be a lot of text, but I promise I'll throw some memes in there, so it's not so no one falls asleep. We'll talk about some of the Dash DAO strengths, weaknesses, how the DAO interacts with the largest Dash funded organization, or DFO, which is Dash Core Group, and we can talk about the Dash trust structure, my experience as a Dash trust protector or DTP, the advantages, disadvantages, and the current trust structure with DCG, the current status that I know of, and proposed ideas for a more accountable DAO and DCG, and some closing thoughts. Again, throwing some memes to keep y'all awake. Some of them may be a little bit too spicy, but we'll see. So we're going to borrow from Ryan Gull's presentation. I liked how he just summarized it. The DAO is basically a revolutionary feature, self-governing, self-funded, ability to create a circular economy, which has been a challenge, but something that we know we can do. The strength is that, for me, at least my point of view, is that outside influence, or those that without some kind of skin in the game, basically people who are not masternode owners or have shared masternodes, they cannot really subvert the system easily. Also, pass-fail decisions, governance decisions is probably my favorite part. Adds clarity, finality on the direction of the network. It's an understated accomplishment in the crypto world, really. Obvious weakness is that it's a grant system, basically cannot hold anybody to task beyond defunding. And due to the nature that a lot of master owners are mostly passive, it's only after the funding term is over that we basically find out the deliverables were not met. So there's some issues with that. And we're almost 10 years old. Sometimes we act like it. And it's not speaking to everybody, but it's an anonymous group of crypto stakeholders that there's a certain number of malcontents, potential mental health issues, real Dash mental, excuse me. So there's also issue of socialized losses, but I would say the last 3-4 years, basically that's mostly gone away. Basically, MNOs are not disincentivized, basically, for making bad decisions. They don't, I guess, lack of a better word, feel the pain directly, because it's everybody else is also losing out when there's a bad proposal that's funded. But again, I don't think this is the most important concern right now, and I think that's mostly proved, fortunately. So meme time, I thought you needed an eye break from all that text. Thankfully, the 2017 crypto dash rush on the treasury, it's going to be out of scope for this presentation. Why add more trauma and memories of MMA funding and horse documentaries, and the latter, which I played a small part in, not the financial part, but I knew the person who actually put that up. So if you want to ask me about that later, if there's time, please feel free to do so. Not very happy about that. So, all right. So Dash Core Group. So this is not exhaustive list accomplishments. I'm sure I'm missing on something, but didn't add the great work the mobile team has done in maintenance of the mobile wallet. There's been iOS hiccups. Not ignoring that, but generally, like even the crowd node mobile integration. Really like how Brian Foster has taken on the mobile team, kind of just leading it and making sure things are getting done properly. That it's been really great. Crowd node, again, mobile integration of that, the Bitcoin for the core, the Bitcoin backports, some of the, I know there's been challenges with the quorum, but really a lot of that work has been quite revolutionary, and they've been focused diligently the last few years. And basically, I'm going to try to focus on transparency, accountability. Since Ryan Taylor's departure, I'm not getting into details with him specifically, but since he's left, I do want to acknowledge before I go on, because there's going to be calls of, oh, you're just kicking a dog while it's down kind of thing with DCG. But I do want to acknowledge Sam Westridge or Quantum Explorer's hard work and rewriting the entire platform code into a proper low-level language, something that's not JavaScript for back-end development, something that inherited and had to be done, and that's going to cause a delay. However, we have to also acknowledge that objectively, there have been delivery promises that have not occurred for Evo platform team. That's not a secret. Continue full funding, and supplemental funding, and recently expanded treasury funding that will come through eventually after version 20. Major improvements in communications since Quantum became CTO, and that's something he's taken pride in. Another thing that's major, in my opinion, is the Evo delivery schedule commitment. I mean, we can't get that, and the reasoning is since there have been deliveries schedules that have been slipped, so therefore we shouldn't do them anymore, and I think that's really a problem. But I've talked to him again. There's open communications. Other people have talked to him about it, so again, it's his massive improvements. Before I go on, so here's a Dash Trust legal structure. This was basically a graphic that Ryan Taylor had included in the Dash.org blog. I thought I'd write it out, though. It's quite confusing. Some of the arrows and things don't make sense. So yeah, the MNOs are beneficiaries, which is really unique to New Zealand Trust. That's quite amazing. The anonymous group can be beneficiaries, and this group, of course, they vote on the Dash Trust protectors, who are sitting right underneath the trustee or top, whichever one to look at it. But the DTPs have on paper, have a lot of power, which is they can appoint, reassign DCG board members, or a new trustee is needed, so they can actually replace the trustee. And then also part of the whole thing is that DCG board members, which is, the DTP's Dash protectors appoint the DCG board members, so the DCG board members are the only ones that can reach down and make changes to Dash Core Inc., which is a C Corp out of Delaware. And then basically DTPs cannot make decisions regarding individual employees or without asking the DCG board. And that's just another layer of bureaucracy that just that's innate, built in, kind of blows my mind, but that's the way it was. And on top of that, there's been a lot of fights over this in the past, but basically I wasn't able to win that one. Basically, DCG board members are composed of DCG managers and employees, which didn't make much sense to me, but basically, yeah, so the DTPs keep DCG accountable, right? So, no. So it's not how it's turned out. So, yeah, so issues with the Dash Trust, the trust structure as a former DTP. So as a former Dash trust protector, basically I'll give you some clarity. Let me start off by saying that I think the biggest benefit of the trust is that you can legally hold assets like Dash.org under a trust that has MNOs as beneficiary, but it pales in comparison to its disadvantages. Basically, based on decision proposals by DTPs and private communication with large MNO holders, direct action by DTPs, it's not really hasn't been welcomed. It kind of the theme is, kind of ask a bit more sternly to make these changes, but don't rock the boat. And that's through votes, and that's through DMs and after party and all this kind of stuff. So that's just how it's turned out. And again, some of these are actual network proposals. So, issue's been settled. It's not bitterness or anything. That's the way it is. Yeah, and there's been threats, in the back. There's been issues, either quit, raise hell, if DTPs don't do this. And again, we'll make sure that Sam Westrich, Quantum Explorer, never behaved this way to the DTPs until he participated early on, but he was not one of the ones that talked like that. So there have been many changes in that DCG board since then. So again, not disparaging anything recent on that point. So yeah, the MNOs, internally from what I've seen, the largest risk factor DCG's preservation is the MNOs, they're a threat. And so there's it's kind of innate, inherent kind of culture, some secrecy, protectionism. And there's been a huge effort again by Sam to change that. But it persists. I think that's just, again, self-preservation. And then also this still happens, basically comparisons to S&P companies when it comes to corporate structure, or the board should be composed like this because Apple has done that, or the top 3 companies, and I guess to me that's kind of hard comparison to make when we are talking about a cryptocurrency. We have our own DAO. We're trying to get away from that kind of stuff, and we have mechanisms that don't involve legal corporate structures and trusts. So yeah, that's just my opinion on that. So yeah, no one in the Dash network at this point, except for Ash Francis, bless his heart, has volunteered to continue as a DTP. And they've said it inside the Discord, the last crop of DTPs, basically is dissatisfaction and ineffectiveness of the position. It's valiant efforts that they made. They actually, one of them sat on the DCG board, tried to create dynamic roadmap, clear deliverables, didn't work. They found demoralizing, confidence in the structure was shaken. And if it's push came to shove, you're basically angering and dividing the network. That's what happens. And indirectly, large holders agree with this, just with votes. So it's not what you want to do. It's just we have a funding mechanism. That's the real vote in my mind. So legally, the Dash trust structure can continue without the DTPs. But we have a trustee that is not very active, so he probably will be okay with it. He will lose his so-called eyes and ears, but I think doesn't matter at this point. Upcoming plan is by DCG board, as far as I know, is to propose a network to fund the Dash trustee and keep the trust going, even without the DTPs. This is kind of status quo. Whether there are DTPs or not really doesn't, like I'm trying to explain here, it really doesn't matter in this sense. I don't think the structure should exist, but I'm saying whether there are DTPs or not really doesn't matter if the structure is going to exist. So, so there's been proposed solutions in network and DCG directly to, both MNOs and DCGs been soundly rejected. Doesn't mean it shouldn't happen, but some of the, again, now the conversations are civil and back and forth, and points are made. So these are huge improvements. And some of them are seen as too much work for DCG finances. They don't have a CFO at this point, and Brian Foster's doubling up on that work, which is, understandably difficult. And what if one group doesn't work with another? And these are things I hear. Departments actually, what if one of them actually gets defunded? It's not a good environment to to answer to hundreds of these pesky MNOs. No one said that, but that's how this only serves to punish, not reward is the point, not reward us. And just these things, my response would be, welcome to the real world. So sounds cold, but I'd say a bounty-based system would be better. It's not something that's opposed, but again, it's a lot of changes, right? And it's a tough time, so why make these changes? It is objectively a tough time. So again, another objection I've heard, not other DCG members, is you can't guarantee all teams will work together in such environment, but there's also a DCG board that can hire and fire people. So, I don't see if somebody's not pulling their weight. I think that's a simple solution. So, another meme. Need a little eye break. I didn't know when I got into crypto that memes would serve as a major outlet for frustration, even outside. So I do want to disclose I supported a reallocation proposal, did not support the doubling of the treasury expansion, but that's how it was put together that way. But, this is how at least it's come out to me. But at the same time, we got to get Evo done. It's a tough position. And this was on Friday's Dash podcast. So Cryptosi said Evo's been, he said 5 years late. I guess it's 5 years late and they haven't been defunded. He was talking to Joel about this. He said, what's the point of having a DAO? I can't think of an occupation in the world where you can deliver a project late and still get paid. But actually I have a situation where the treasury expansion proposal, is what he's saying, is being changed to accommodate delivery products that were not delivered. It's astounding. Goes to show that DAOs can be even more inefficient than regular legacy companies. There's no chance of that happening except for something like landing on the moon. And in fairness, he said afterwards that this is kind of a product of the DAO being so young. 10 years is nothing. And that it's an iterative process, and they discussed that. But I thought that was a strong point. So the next one. So proposed solutions. This is not a proposed solution. First one is just to point out bear markets kind of make you humble and focus better. The old wasteful days are over. Even when we had the bull run in after 2000, which is like 2020 or so, we had that bull run. You didn't see mass waste in terms of new proposals coming in and funding things we shouldn't. So there's been massive improvements just by the fact that we've had to eat some humble pie. And escrow service, I really have always thought this was great, but what do people go back to? I don't blame them. It's green candle, basically, depending on if you ask them, they were just paying taxes in Canada, but if you ask other people, they ran away with the funds. So everybody gets turned off, but I think there's potential, like maybe a possible multi-sig is still kind of centralized, but at least there's 3-4 people, maybe 5 people, and 3 have to get approval to pay out based on milestones met for a proposal. If deliverables are not met, funds will be redirected to another predetermined direction project that would be actually cited in the proposal. And then I don't know if you guys have heard of Flip Starter. So basically it was BCH's version of raising funds. and people volunteer their BCH, and people propose, and if it hit the marker, then people. George Donnelly got a lot of money doing it this way, and with BCH, and so I think Joel is the one that proposed this or talked about it, and I thought it was really interesting. Basically, this version would be the larger masternote holders, or it doesn't just masternote holders would initially fund a project up to a certain amount, and if that did pass or they did meet some kind of threshold, then that treasury will be able to assess. Their treasury would say, "Wow, this is a success," and maybe you continue funding if initial deliverables aren't being met. And that's kind of like encouraging MNOs to become more active. This is going to be kind of a theme towards the end here. Rather than passive funders, more skin in the game. Kind of, we have this thing called armchair quarterback syndrome. This is what I think should happen. Okay, I gotta go now. So I understand people are busy and stuff, but I just think we need things that encourage, incentivize more involvement by the stakeholders here. And I've been guilty of that in the past, early on, I think, as an investor, and now I look at myself as an active member. So bounty system, I think, pay for performance. I think we know how that works. It's Dash Incubator, Dash Marketing Hub. I've done it. It's not about being perfect, but everything's transparent. You know exactly how much people have made on every project. You know what the tasks were. Whether they didn't work out, you can criticize it. It's just all there. Like, if you're unhappy, you have the receipts to say, why am I unhappy with you? Here you go. I have everything I need to basically show you that you're not doing your job. And I just think that's common sense. And it doesn't have to copy what Dash Incubator exactly does. It just needs to be, in my opinion, this would solve a ton of problems. And it kind of pulls away from a company mindset. So if the only takeaway one here is, oh my gosh, all you've done is just trash DCG, then you've missed some of the points here, which is, no DFO in the DAO should have a special status in the network. Who's going to disagree with that? At least on paper, no one's going to disagree with that. Ultimately, it's not DCG that's to blame, but MNOs have allowed this to continue. That's no doubt about that. Doing the hard things like separating the DAO from company legal entanglements will only make Dash stronger in the long run. We didn't get into this, so we can have trust in corporate structure and cite S&P 500 ways of doing things. We have central banks and regulators bringing down the crypto industry in the Western world. Basically, if you want to become anti-fragile, you have to be able to withstand adversity. And one that is a DAO that is somehow legally tied to a Delaware C Corp via trust, I'm not buying that as anti-fragile. If we're going to continue the DCG status quo, MNOs, again, not DCG, MNOs should at least demand that proposals are separated as just initial measure, I think. Again, let's fully support DCG, Sam, all the infrastructure guys, all the tech, and all the folks that keep DCG running. They've all the hard workers there are in a tough time. But in delivering Evo, V20 for core, mobile team that's doing a great, and they're also going to include mobile privacy potentially. That's being looked at. There's just a lot of great things happening. But all I ask is, don't accept the lack of delay, the lack of deliverable schedules and delays anymore. Like, it's not time to just point at DCG. It's MNOs that have to step up, and that's the theme here. I hope that's the biggest takeaway here. I also don't think you have my last meme in there, but the last meme in there says change my mind one, and it just says that a community's number one asset is its active members. Really, that's how we're gonna. That's one of the best ways we're gonna come out of this. Also, I want to say, I want to point out, when I go to cryptocurrency conferences or even hear from former Dash investors, maybe the ones that even left, the one thing I've heard is most often was that the community was awesome. They're not talking about Dash Central, but they're talking about how awesome the community is. That's something we do have. We just need more people participating. Anyone in DCG, Dash Incubator, MNOs, other community members that are listening, let's just make it happen. I believe in Dash. This market is kind of a jolt. We need to wake up and make Dash shine again. And shout out to Dash Incubator, Ryan, Pete, Amanda. And I will not forget to shout out one time who's someone that has really stepped up. I mean, he was using a voice changer on the after party, just yeah, and now look at him sitting in Dash Retreat, Utah. He's one of those OG Dash community members that every project needs to succeed. So shout out to him as well. Thank you.